Welcome to Skyler Jarvis Media.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Skyler Jarvis.
What's up, everybody? This is the Skyler Jarvis Show. I'm your host, Skyler, and today I got another special guest on with me. Introduce yourself, Abby.
Hello. Hopefully y'all can hear me. My
We can hear
name
you
is
good.
Abby Sykes, and it's nice to be here with everybody today.
So, where are you from?
I am from Lumberton, North Carolina.
Lumberton, North Carolina. You told me before the podcast that it was like 2 hours away from Raleigh.
Right.
So, how have you been today, Abby?
I've been doing pretty well. It's been, just typical relaxing day. Not too much has been going on today, so.
Okay, so you've been keeping up with the episodes. So I've been doing a series on the podcast called Blind Lives Matter.
Yes.
And it's basically getting people like you on the podcast so y'all can tell your stories. You know, how you were treated in workplaces, how you were treated in schools, how you grew up as a blind person.
Right.
So I want to start with, were you born blind?
Yes, I was born totally blind.
Okay, yeah, you know that makes a big difference. Like sometimes I had one of my friends, her name's Carol, on the podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
she, she wasn't born blind, so we got to dive into that a little bit. So, how long were you in public school?
Basically my entire school experience, elementary, middle, high school, I was in public school the whole time. For the longest time, I didn't even know they had schools out there for the blind till I was in like high school.
So how did people treat you in public school? Did they treat you equally?
Well, I mean, I had some people who treated me equally. I, I didn't really have a lot of friends, I guess you would say. I had more of acquaintances and, people that I hung out with during the time. But as far as like outside school, I wasn't very, um, a lot of people knew me, but I wasn't, the typical person everybody would go to hang out with.
Right.
I was more, the teachers were more of my friends that I had. So I got along with a lot of the teachers.
Yeah, it can kind of be hard when you can't really relate like visually to some of the things that they're doing in public school. So how did learning in school affect you being blind?
I mean, it was kind of something that I, had to adjust to. Um, most of, in the area I live in places, it's a contrast to, um, living in places like Raleigh or Charlotte. Um, Lumberton's kind of like a more rural, out in the country sort of area.
Right.
And we didn't have, well, I, didn't have a lot of the resources. My entire way of getting through school, as far as assignments go, I was either, I did things um, through auditory and I did it through Braille. So that was my only way of getting through assignments and stuff my entire school experience.
Did you have somebody that would translate Braille for you whenever you did it?
Yes, I had a TVI. she would come, a few days a week, sometimes 2, 3 times a week. And she would transcribe stuff for me. But that's pretty much how I did things. And, other times I would have like a teacher or another student to, work with me on like assignments and stuff that needed to be done that very day. Because, transcribing and stuff that can take, quite some time.
Yeah, it can.
Oh, yeah.
So as far as as far as going out and getting jobs, how is that for you?
Oh, goodness. That is definitely not easy. I've been trying to, find a job. At this point, right now I'm kind of just open to anything. I'm trying to find a job, but in situations in general, it's hard for you know uh, a blind or visually impaired person to get a job in general. Let alone if you're living in an area like mine where
Yeah.
blindness isn't very common. People are even more likely to um, deny you, which is really sad. But
Very.
I mean,
It was always. I remember. I remember when I was trying to get a job, and
right.
this was during the COVID time. So yeah, a lot of jobs were shut down.
Oh, goodness.
But
Yeah.
I tried to get a job at Salvation Army, and they just straight denied me. I was able to fill out the application, but
Yeah.
after the application, it was more along the lines of, they didn't call. They you know how they play that card a lot.
Yeah.
They don't.
They say, "Oh, we're going to call you," and then they never call.
Yep.
So you're just waiting on a call that never comes, and that's really discouraging.
And then you have to call up there
Right.
only for them to tell you either somebody else got the job or they don't think you're the right person.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I started doing this series on this podcast, is because I wanted to draw attention to the fact that, like, I've got a podcast, but
Right.
other people aren't going to have.
They're not as lucky.
Right. I mean, I had to wait 3 years for it to happen.
Right.
So, that's whenever, I'm always saying, like, most blind people are still living with their parents.
Yes.
And that's a big thing with, almost every blind person I talk to
Right.
now.
Mhm.
They're still living with their mom or one of their grandparents or something.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. And that's, a big thing here too is, even when it comes to like getting your own place, you can't really, if you don't have a job, you can't really afford um to, get your own apartment or whatever. And even, if you're on SSI or disability, $1,000 or however much it is not enough to live on.
No, it's
And
not.
sometimes, like if I were to try to get a place, in normal price range, even if it's like $700-800, I would still need at least maybe another person or two, to go into it with me because I cannot afford it on my own.
Another thing is, like, I think if you have like $2,000 in the bank,
Right.
they can start taking away your SSI money.
Well, that's, I don't know. I've heard a lot of stuff about that. People think, well, I don't know. I don't know the logistics on it, but um even with places that have like the uh, what is it? Where they're, lower income housing or whatever. Even those are hard to get into nowadays.
Definitely.
I tried going for one a couple of weeks ago. Um, and I got everything set up and I went in there and, I did the application. I brought them the application and the person told me, she's like, well, I'll accept your application, but be prepared because they might not accept you. I'm like, okay, why is that? And she told me, well, um, quite frankly, you're blind, and the people who own these places might not let you have one because they're more worried about their property than your well-being.
It's crazy, man.
It is.
I think they used, a lot of places use that as an excuse.
Yes. Like liability. They use the liability purpose on it, whether it be a house or a job or all of that, like just because of the fact we don't have vision. And it's really sad.
It is.
It's really sad. And there's people out there who, who are much worse off than we are. And, my heart goes out to them, but they are still able to get, a job or a house or, and just because we don't have vision, we are kept from those resources.
Definitely. I agree with you, Abby, 100%. I mean, it's not really about how good we can see or the fact that we're blind. It's the fact that these people don't want to take the time to learn from us.
Exactly.
And if
I mean, even sometimes down to your own family. Like it's amazing how, people, a lot of families that I've seen, they have, a blind child and they're just like, oh, well, how are you going to do this? And how are you going to do that? Like you can, like even with my family, I can say, oh, I want to get a job. And they'll just like, well, how are you going to do that? I'm like, okay, well
right.
then, thanks for having faith.
My mom, my family has always been very supportive of me
That is
doing for
awesome.
myself. So, Mama she's wanting to get me in like a empty parking lot or something
Mm-hmm.
and let me drive.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow. I wish I had people like that in my life.
I hear you. I mean, they're definitely hard to run across. You,
Yeah, I mean the only person I really had was my stepmom. She was visually impaired. Um well, she was visually impaired, but she never lived a life, I guess, as a blind or visually impaired person. And that's a whole story within itself. But she was pretty much the only one who really advocated for me for the longest time. She taught me just about everything I know. She taught me how to bake. She taught me how to, do, things. And, she was the one who kind of um, inspired me in a lot of ways. And, unfortunately, she, passed away a little over a year ago.
I'm sorry to hear
So
that.
yeah, it's tough because she was my biggest advocate, my strongest supporter. So,
And I just want to let you know, Abby, that I mean, if you need anything, if you need anybody to talk to, you can always call me up.
oh, same here, same here.
And like you helped me. I remember, in 2020 when I was really depressed about all of that stuff, the way the school kind of the way the school just kind of, our graduation was over a computer,
Oh yeah.
and I kind of felt cheated cheated from that,
Right.
like COVID and all cut a lot of stuff short.
Oh
And
yeah. COVID ruined a lot of stuff, especially, for, me. I was in public school. I graduated, class of 21, and my entire senior year was virtual. We were on
wow.
computers. And the messed up part of that is, I was always, a straight A honor roll, well, AB honor roll student.
Yeah.
And I'm not very technologically inclined. I'm not very tech savvy. I can work an iPhone or an iPad thanks to a friend of mine. Um, but when it came to actually, working a computer or anything like that, I have no clue what I'm doing. So my mom actually had to sit down with me and operate the computer for me because I had no clue what I was doing that
Right.
entire year. So and your senior year, that's a big time in a person's life. And I really did not get to experience that, as a senior or, especially as a visually impaired person.
Right. I'm definitely an advocate for, personal schooling sessions,
Yes.
because I was never. I knew, like you said, I knew how to work an iPhone and an iPad, and I knew how to get it done. But
Right.
for me, it was more along like when you're in a personal room, when you're in a room like in your school or whatever,
Right.
and you're able to concentrate a lot
Yes.
better, than when you're sitting at home and you got all these distractions.
Exactly. I mean, there are certain, things, there's pros and cons to
There,
it. Like,
yeah,
I definitely enjoyed, being home because of, the simple thing. It's the comfort of your own house. And you
right.
don't always have to be on camera. But at the same time, for a learning experience, I personally feel like I would have rather been in person.
I agree with you.
I would have rather been in person because, you get to see people, you get to, and I was a big chorus, vocal music
Yes.
kid. So my senior year, I did not get to take those classes because of the fact that we were virtual. And my chorus teacher did not think that I would be able to keep up um, with everything virtually. So it was really, and I took in my senior year, my last semester, I took psychology because I was planning at the time to try to go to college for psychology or criminal justice.
Uh huh.
And by the time I got ready to do final exams, um, I had my psychology course and it hit me. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Because when it came to like writing notes and stuff down, my mom would have to write them for me.
Uh huh.
She would have to write them for me and turn in because that class is extremely visual.
Oh yeah.
So if you're not there in person, it literally felt like my mom was taking the class and I was just like
Yeah.
there to answer questions a few times.
I can see how. I can see how. Yeah. I could definitely see how that would make you feel. It would definitely be weird.
It is, yeah, and I felt, and the fortunate thing about it was, after that experience, I guess that experience kind of inspired my mom to go back to school herself. And now she's working on a bachelor's degree. And she's doing her schooling online. from the University of Phoenix.
That's good of your mom. I'm glad she made that decision.
I know she's great. She's awesome, and I'm glad I have her support.
I bet you have she has your support as well.
She does, most definitely. I am like her number one, whether she knows it or not. I am definitely her number one supporter.
I bet she. So,
Yeah, she seems to.
Abby, is there anything you want to tell the audience?
Um, well, it depends on what it is.
Like encouragement for any blind people that are watching this,
Oh, okay, yeah. Um,
or anybody in general.
well, I mean, it's wow, okay. um, it's more of, people can say advocate, 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 advocate. And yes, they're right. But, for a lot of people, advocating, just telling somebody, I can do this, I can do it. People don't always listen.
No, they
And
don't.
so it's hard for us as blind and visually impaired people. So, I mean, and for, sighted people out there, when somebody says, I can do something, at least give them a chance to try to do it and be open minded, because a lot of times it just takes somebody to show you what to do and then you can catch on to it.
Exactly.
Don't just say you can't do something because, it tears people down. And especially, and for me, I have anxiety, depression, mental health is a big factor here too.
Big factor.
And, if somebody is treated, like they can't do something, whether you know it or not, you might think you have their best interests at heart. But if you're telling somebody they can't do something, it's going to make them feel worse about themselves.
Right.
And
Right.
it's going to enable their, what is it? It's going to break them down and they're not going to have enough confidence in themselves, or, they need your support. It's bad enough they're not getting support out there in the real world. But if you're a family member or a friend or somebody who is supposed to be supporting them and you're not giving them the confidence they need and telling them you can do this, then, that's you have to be supportive.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%, Abby. And that goes for anybody in family members, friends, co-workers, bosses,
Significant others,
significant others,
anybody. Like,
anybody.
I know you might be worried, like, especially, parents out there who have, children, who are visually impaired, they they have a voice. They may not have vision, but they have a voice. They have, ears. They have a brain. They can make decisions for themselves instead of, protecting them. And I know you want to protect them, but instead of just telling them, oh, you can't do this, or no, I'm not going to let you do this, or whatever. I know you're worried, but you have to at least let people have a chance to live because you're not always going to be around to protect them. The harsh reality is, you know, nobody is, you know, um, if you're a blind person or a person in general, you're not always going to have people around to do things for you.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
people need to see that. It's hard and it sounds harsh, but you have to really reflect and look at yourself and be like, you know, what am I doing? How can I, what can I do? And, yes, they have schools for the blind out there. They have things out there, but, that will help. But for a family member or a parent, if you send your child, especially a child at a young age, to a school for the blind, it's not their job to raise your child.
No.
You have to be the one to teach them as much as you can.
Before you send them,
If you don't know how to teach them something, just try in your own way. Just try it. I mean, I got this far. I'll be 22 years old in December. I've gotten this far, and I haven't gone to a school for the blind. I've visited, but I haven't gone full time. But even I know things. You don't have to go to a school for the blind just to learn how to do things. All you need sometimes is just somebody to have the support and to say, you know what? I will teach you.
encouragement for sure.
Yes. Yes.
For sure. So you actually encouraged me to do the Braille Club.
Oh, yeah, I remember. I remember that.
I remember, I think it was one of the first times you came to GMS.
It was the very first time, yeah. And we were sitting around the lunch table and everybody was talking about it. Braille versus audio
Yeah.
books.
What?
And at the time, I wasn't very familiar with audio books because if you remember, around that time, I didn't even have an iPhone.
Yeah. I didn't at the time. I had a Samsung.
I had a little. I was worse than that. I had my little the little flip phone thing with
Yeah.
the little buttons and stuff. All you could do was call and text.
Yeah.
All I had was that thing, and I didn't know until recently. I had never seen a braille display.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow. You learn something new every day.
exactly. And I mean, now, I have to rely more on audio and audiobooks and stuff because, I moved not long after I went to um, up there for the first time. And right after I met you, I think I moved to a new place and I didn't have a lot of room for braille books. And I eventually had to go into audio, and that, I enjoy it. But, like we
It's
were
not as
talking about back
satisfying
then, there's
as
nothing
Braille.
wrong with just reading a braille book.
No, there's not. There's not. And what really inspired me to do that was the fact that so many people were just saying, "Oh no, I got it on my iPad. I'll just do it there. I don't need
Right.
Braille." And
Yeah.
that should tell anybody who's listening, that don't take Braille for granted. There's a lot of stuff we
Yes.
take for granted. Like, Abby, one of the first times she's seen a Braille display. So, there's a lot of stuff that we take for granted.
Right.
And, yeah. So, I think we're going to wrap this up. Abby,
Okay.
is there anything else you want to tell them?
My advice is just, if you're a blind or visually impaired person out there and you're trying to, whatever the case may be, if you're going through school, if you're trying to get a job, trying to get a house, trying to do whatever, just stay strong. I know it's frustrating and it's easier said than done, but stay strong, network, try to, find all the sources you can and, use all the resources that you possibly can. I know not many of us have those resources, because a lot of people aren't as lucky as others to have certain resources and things available to them. But just stay strong and try. Don't be afraid to advocate. Don't be afraid to advocate. And sighted people, try to be more open minded. Should definitely try to be more open minded.
And also, for any blind individuals that are watching this, take your nose, and then, when you finally get accepted somewhere, you use all them times you got told no to your advantage. Improve yourself.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
So, this concludes today's episode of the Skyler Jarvis Show. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you being on here, Abby.
I appreciate you for having me.
So, share this video with anybody, and remember, blind lives matter. This is Skyler Jarvis and Abby Sykes signing off. Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, Skyler has left the building. Hey, bro, don't you want to say anything?